Right now, you're exchanging your very existence for currency, and the conversion rate is dishonest. For 47 years, I served as a personal caregiver to some of the most affluent individuals across America during their closing chapters. I resided within their estates. I shared meals at their dining tables. I clasped their trembling hands during the loneliest hours before dawn, when everyone else had abandoned them. I witnessed 87 souls depart this world, and I'm standing here to declare that the majority existed in profound despair, not mere discomfort, not simple anxiety, but genuine anguish, a bone-deep, all-consuming wretchedness that no amount of wealth could even begin to remedy. There's something crucial you must grasp before we venture further into this conversation. I refuse to feed you the fairy tale that currency holds no significance. Such a claim would be utterly ridiculous. Resources absolutely matter. My childhood unfolded during the Great Depression. My father became unemployed in 1931. And our family survived on bologna sandwiches for 24 months. The sting of scarcity lives vividly in my memory. The cold dread of facing eviction haunts me still, along with the impossibility of affording medical attention. The gnawing uncertainty about whether sustenance would appear the following week remains etched in my soul. That brand of destitution will obliterate your inner light, destroy your physical well-being, and demolish every meaningful connection you possess. Financial resources eliminate those nightmares. Anyone claiming differently has never experienced authentic poverty. Yet here's the revelation that crystallized during 47 years of maintaining vigil beside the privileged class. A threshold exists, arriving far earlier than your imagination allows, beyond which additional wealth ceases to provide relief and begins inflicting damage, not because prosperity itself carries malevolence, but because the sacrifices demanded to obtain it prove irretrievable, while the acquisitions it purchases amount to nothing of substance. Allow me to share the story of Catherine Pemberton. I attended to her needs from September of 1973 through her passing in February of the following year. Her residence sprawled across 12,000 square feet in Westchester, featuring 7 sleeping chambers, an aquatic facility, a tennis complex, and botanical gardens, requiring 2 dedicated horticulturists working year-round. Her deceased spouse had achieved partnership status at a prominent Wall Street institution. Her fortune exceeded what she could possibly exhaust across 10 consecutive lifetimes. Catherine had reached 78 years, and her heart was surrendering to failure. 4 offspring bore her name. During the 5 months of my service, not a single one crossed her threshold, not even once. Her daughter, residing in California, dispatched floral arrangements on 2 occasions. That constituted the entirety of their contact. Catherine would position herself in her sunlit chamber, gazing upon those meticulously maintained roses, and weep openly. Her tears weren't mourning her mortality, but rather the devastating reality that she had brought 4 human beings into existence, and none cherished her sufficiently to offer a final farewell. Near her conclusion, I inquired about the circumstances that led to this isolation. She explained that during her children's formative years, she and her spouse were constructing their empire. Their schedules consumed every waking moment. They dispatched the youngsters to residential academies, seasonal programs, essentially any institution willing to assume responsibility for their care. In their minds, they were establishing their children's prosperity, guaranteeing their offspring's advantages. Can you comprehend what she confessed to me? Her exact words were, "Dorothy, I bartered away my own children in exchange for financial assets, resources they don't even desire. I provided them with every material possession imaginable, everything except my actual presence. And at this moment, as death approaches, I'm encircled by exquisite possessions, yet I exist in absolute solitude." I remained beside Catherine through her final exhalation. Her children failed to attend her memorial service. This narrative doesn't represent an anomaly. This identical pattern repeated itself throughout my observation period spanning nearly 5 decades. Specific circumstances varied. The mansions occupied different geographical locations. The accumulated riches originated from diverse industries, yet the isolation remained absolutely uniform. This truth demands your attention. The likelihood is high that you're consuming this content because your professional obligations have become excessive. The probability exists that you're constructing a narrative where you claim these sacrifices benefit your household. Your thoughts likely drift towards some arbitrary threshold, some benchmark, some plateau of stability, and then, only then will you decelerate your pace. Only then will you engage meaningfully with your children. Only then will you contact your mother with greater frequency. Only then will you cultivate your social bonds. Only then will you grant yourself respite. I observed individuals departing this existence with this precise strategy left incomplete for 47 consecutive years. The financial accumulation continued unabated. The promised moment of transition never materialized. Let me introduce you to another individual under my supervision, Thomas Caldwell. My care for him occurred in 1982 within a penthouse situated on 5th Avenue. 23 individual rooms, a panoramic perspective of Central Park capable of stealing your breath, a Monet adorning the main living space, an authentic Monet canvas. Thomas had constructed his fortune from absolute nothingness. His journey began with zero resources, evolved into a manufacturing dynasty, and generated wealth beyond ordinary comprehension. This achievement filled him with justified pride. Building something substantial from emptiness demands extraordinary effort. His typical workday stretched across 18 hours, sustained for 4 consecutive decades. He absented himself from his children's commencement ceremonies, their nuptials, their annual celebrations. He confided that his intentions seemed righteous at the time. He was constructing a safety net, ensuring they would never endure the hardships he had experienced. Thomas was succumbing to emphysema when our paths intersected. Crossing a single room left him gasping for oxygen. Most hours found him confined to a medical bed within that penthouse, his view of Central Park filtered through transparent tubing delivering breath. During one afternoon, as I modified his cushions for comfort, his hand shot out and captured mine. His strength had deteriorated, yet his grasp conveyed urgency. His eyes locked onto mine, and he spoke these words, "Dorothy, my entire existence has been devoted to amassing possessions. My collections exceed any reasonable person's requirements. Yet in this precise moment, confined to this bed, I would surrender absolutely everything, every single dollar, every property deed, every artistic masterpiece, in exchange for merely 12 additional months beside my spouse. His wife had departed this world 8 years prior to our conversation. They had constructed elaborate plans for global exploration following his retirement. His retirement was perpetually scheduled for the subsequent calendar year. That future year never arrived on any actual calendar. She suffered a cerebrovascular incident at 64, departing just 6 months before his long-promised exit from professional life. Thomas drew his final breath 3 weeks following that conversation. His offspring liquidated the penthouse property, along with the Monet painting. My impression suggests none retained anything bearing his personal significance. I want to pose a question for your consideration, and your response should remain completely honest, existing solely within your private thoughts, unexpressed verbally. What percentage of your existence are you currently holding in suspension? How many evening meals have you skipped with individuals who matter to you? How many weekend hours have you allocated to professional duties rather than authentic living? How frequently have you delivered the phrase, "My apologies, that's impossible, my work demands my attention"? How many instances have you entertained the notion, "Eventually I'll carve out moments for this pursuit"? Eventually represents a fabrication you're constructing for self-protection, allowing you to avoid confronting the actual transaction you're executing. The scientific literature on this subject, incidentally, confirms everything my observations revealed. Researchers have examined this phenomenon across multiple decades. Their findings demonstrate that once your financial resources satisfy fundamental requirements and establish reasonable security, additional wealth fails to enhance well-being. A Princeton investigation discovered that contentment plateaus around $75,000. More contemporary studies have adjusted these parameters, yet the fundamental conclusion persists. Beyond a particular threshold, increased wealth fails to purchase elevated happiness. Yet our pursuit continues regardless. Can you identify the underlying reason? Because currency offers measurable properties. We can observe its expansion. We can benchmark it against others. It provides a tangible target. Contentment resists simple measurement. Human connections defy straightforward quantification. Society doesn't distribute advancement opportunities for exceptional parenting or symbolic recognition for maintaining contact with our mothers. Consequently, we maximize what permits calculation while allowing the immeasurable elements to dissolve into absence. Then we achieve consciousness at 78, resembling Catherine Pemberton, encompassed by spectacular roses, yet devoid of anyone who genuinely cherishes us. I want to describe someone representing a contrasting pattern now, because my professional experience didn't exclusively involve despondent, wealthy individuals. I also provided care for certain people who discovered the solution. Helen Fitzgerald. I attended to her in 1989 within a modest colonial structure in Fairfield, Connecticut. Compared to the typical economic status of my clientele, Helen couldn't be classified as affluent. She possessed a pleasant residence, sufficient resources to compensate for my services, with minimal excess beyond that baseline. Her husband had served as a secondary education administrator. She had dedicated her career to teaching. Helen was losing her battle with malignancy. Considerable physical suffering characterized most of her days. Yet here's what remains vivid in my recollection about Helen. Her dwelling overflowed with human presence. Her 3 offspring appeared every 7 days. Her grandchildren materialized following their academic schedules. Previous students made appearances. Professional associates she hadn't encountered in years journeyed to visit. The house remained compact and disorganized, yet perpetually resonated with human voices. Helen shared with me on one occasion that she and her husband had reached a deliberate conclusion early in their union. They determined they would never compromise time with their children in pursuit of supplementary income. Her husband declined a superintendent position because accepting would have demanded evening and weekend obligations. Helen refused advancement to department leadership for identical considerations. They generated less income than their potential allowed. They inhabited a smaller dwelling than they could have secured had they both intensified their professional commitments. Yet they shared the evening meal together without interruption for 34 consecutive years. They attended every musical performance, every athletic competition, every theatrical production at school. They maintained familiarity with their children's companions. They understood their children's anxieties. They remained genuinely present. When Helen drew her final breath, her children were maintaining physical contact with her hands, all 3 simultaneously. They expressed their grief through tears while declaring their love and expressing gratitude for the existence she had provided them. I have maintained presence during numerous deaths. I can testify that a profound distinction exists between departing surrounded by individuals who genuinely love you versus departing surrounded by individuals anticipating their financial inheritance. This distinction encompasses absolutely everything. Your internal dialogue at this precise moment might suggest that my perspective comes easily. I've exited the competitive cycle. I no longer face mortgage obligations, dependent children requiring nourishment, university expenses requiring accumulation. What understanding could I possibly possess regarding the pressures confronting your reality? I understand this fundamental truth. Every single individual who compromised their relationships pursuing wealth repeated the identical internal justification you're currently constructing. They universally believed alternatives didn't exist. They universally believed their circumstances possessed unique intensity. They universally believed their actions served their family's best interests. Their conclusions were fundamentally incorrect. Their recognition of this error materialized exclusively when circumstances no longer permitted correction. The individuals who achieved clarity, people like Helen Fitzgerald, confronted identical pressures. They managed mortgage obligations, children, and financial responsibilities. They weren't privileged individuals with resources permitting withdrawal. They simply executed different decisions. They declined certain opportunities, enabling them to embrace alternative opportunities. They concluded that their physical presence in their children's existence held greater importance than expanded living quarters or more luxurious transportation. These decisions didn't arrive without difficulty. They involved compromises and surrendered possibilities, yet they remained conscious decisions. You possess decision-making authority as well. You're simply constructing pretense around their absence because these decisions demand courage. I want to convey something else my 47 years of bedside observation revealed. Throughout all those years, nobody ever expressed regret about insufficient professional dedication, not a single individual, not the corporate executives, not the legal professionals, not the medical practitioners, not the empire builders, nor those who inherited established fortunes. Not one solitary soul declared, "I wish my office had consumed more of my hours," yet numerous individuals expressed regret about excessive professional dedication. Numerous individuals wished they had prioritized home more consistently. Numerous individuals wished they had disconnected the mobile device, shut the portable computer, disregarded the electronic correspondence. Numerous individuals wished they had accepted the invitation to the fishing expedition, the school theatrical performance, the Sunday family gathering. Numerous individuals wished they had remained genuinely present for the existence unfolding in their immediate vicinity, while they remained preoccupied accumulating currency they would never utilize. I have one final patient requiring introduction. His identity was Robert Sterling. I provided care during 1995. He had reached 91 years and his kidneys were failing within a brownstone on the Upper West Side. His net worth exceeded $100 million. Robert diverged from the typical pattern among my patients. Bitterness hadn't consumed him. Isolation hadn't claimed him. His children maintained constant visitation. His grandchildren held him in genuine affection. A sense of peace emanated from him that I rarely encountered among individuals possessing his magnitude of wealth. I questioned him about this phenomenon one evening. I asked how he had managed to accumulate such extraordinary wealth without descending into misery. He explained that when he had reached 42 years of age, his closest companion succumbed to cardiac arrest, collapsing fatally at 44. Worked himself into an early grave, Robert stated. That occurred in 1946. Following the funeral ceremony, Robert returned to his residence and executed something revolutionary. He performed calculations determining the actual financial resources he required for comfortable survival through his remaining years. He incorporated additional reserves for unexpected circumstances. He established a specific figure and then executed a complete halt. He ceased maintaining 60-hour weekly schedules. He abandoned pursuing the subsequent transaction. He permitted younger colleagues to assume control. He began returning home for the evening meal. He began coaching his son's baseball squad. He initiated travel experiences with his spouse. He began actually living. His business associates considered his behavior irrational. They argued he was deliberately forfeiting potential earnings. He confided to me that forfeiting potential earnings was precisely his intention. He stated, "Dorothy, I made a conscious choice to abandon potential wealth so I could physically occupy a chair at the dining table with my family instead." Robert Sterling continued breathing for 49 additional years following that pivotal decision. He possessed adequate financial resources for any desire he might entertain, yet what he genuinely desired, as circumstances revealed, was temporal existence, and he granted himself authorization to claim it. I have reached 101 years of age. The duration of my remaining existence eludes my knowledge. It could span years, could span months, could conclude next week. At this stage of existence, you abandon pretending certainty exists. Yet I possess this certainty. I have survived long enough to observe entire generations repeating the identical error. I have witnessed individuals sacrifice their authentic lives for currency they never spend pursuing contentment. They never experience. I have witnessed family units disintegrate over inherited wealth that delivers nothing except suffering. I have witnessed individuals reach their conclusion with overflowing financial accounts and depleted emotional cores. You needn't join their ranks. You can determine today that your current resources suffice. You can determine that your presence carries greater value than your productivity. You can determine that sharing the evening meal with your family supersedes another hour at your workplace. You can determine that contacting your mother this week matters more substantially than responding to that electronic message tonight. These represent decisions. They constitute challenging decisions, yet they belong to you for execution. I'm not suggesting you abandon your employment or discard your aspirations. I'm suggesting you maintain honesty about what you're exchanging and what you're receiving as compensation. I'm suggesting you cease pretending that eventually will materialize independently. I'm suggesting that the individuals you cherish will not maintain permanent presence, and neither will you. Robert Sterling calculated his sufficient threshold at 42 and granted himself 50 years of authentic existence instead of 50 years of relentless labor. What figure represents your threshold, and when will you execute your halt? I have communicated what required expression. Exhaustion has claimed me now. The young woman assisting me with this recording suggests I should instruct you to like and subscribe, yet I genuinely don't comprehend what that means. I simply hope my words reached you. Your existence isn't waiting for you somewhere in the distant future. It's unfolding right now. Go inhabit it while you still possess the opportunity.